Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your favorite Twitch podcast stream, internet chat space. I hope so. We are here at Unapologetically Uterine. I am VNA Estrada from Safe to Choose. I'm here with my co host Gail from How to Use Abortion Pill. And today we are going to have a different episode, something a little bit more interactive, a little bit more filled with questions and quizzes, because as you may or may not know, September is the Safe Abortion Month, which means that Gail and I have been extremely busy and working a lot to provide you information about safe abortions. Anything you'd like to add about Safe Abortion Month, Gail?
Yes, like you said, it's all around. I think it's in as much as it comes with a lot of business, it's also very exciting because a lot of other organizations are amplified, and then you just get to see a lot of individuals talking about safe abortions and just abortions in general. So it's fun times, it's educational times. I love September,
Uh,
basically.
I do too. I think it's a great month, especially because of safe abortion months. So, to get into this episode, I'm just going to chat about this a little bit more. So, like I mentioned, September is the Safe Abortion Month, where many organizations, activists, and advocates dedicate their time to sharing information and resources on abortions. We know this happens year round, but it's good to have like a specific month to put some emphasis on this. Although abortion is becoming more common and it's more common to discuss abortions, there is still a lot of misinformation and stigma that surrounds this topic. So, today's episode, we're going to bust some of the biggest myths around the topic and we're going to test your knowledge to see how much you know about abortions. So, for this segment, the first segment, I'm going to ask some questions for Gail to see how much she knows about abortion knowledge. They're very simple questions, although the stats are actually really interesting. So let's go with the first one. I think, Gil, you're going to knock this out of the park. On what day is Safe Abortion Day celebrated? September 10th, September 22nd, or September 28th? I think you might be muted, Gil.
Oh yeah, sorry. I do that a lot. So I'm thinking because I mean it's important that I get the answer right. So I'm going to go with September 28th.
That is the correct answer. I would have been very worried if you had not gotten it right. But yes, on September 28th
Yeah.
is the Safe Abortion Day, and this is a day that commemorates a lot of the abortion providers who have provided safe abortion but have been targeted and discriminated against
Hmm.
because they are pro choice. So it's good to have this day to commemorate and celebrate. And like Gail mentioned, just seeing how many networks and abortion providers are actually here and exist and can help us out.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, I'm going to go with the second question, which is what percentage of people in reproductive age live in a country that allows abortion on request? A, 34%, B, 57%, or C, 6%?
I think I'll probably need some extra education here. So um but my answer is going to be B, 57%.
It's A, 34%. 57% is like
How
the
is that?
optimistical answer. Like, I hope it increases, but it's still pretty
Yeah, I
low.
see that.
Uh huh. At least it's not six, which I mean the bar is very low if we're saying at least it's not six. But I think 34%, that means how much work that still needs to be done. We need to really work on
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
because we need to give that abortion access to anybody.
I think it's very it's quite unfortunate that the number is that low.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes, so when we are looking at these statistics and then you think about it in in retrospect, maybe um how much progress has been made since the last maybe 10 years or the last 5 years. I
Mm-hmm.
think it puts some things in perspective because for all you know, maybe in like 5 years ago or 10 years ago, the number was probably around 10
Mm-hmm.
or 15. Because I think even though it's slow, the progress is slow, and it doesn't look like so much is happening. I think an impact is still being had, like
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of places. We are still like, we as advocates, organizations, medical providers, just even normal people in general, like our little efforts are really like amounting to a lot,
Mm-hmm.
even though sometimes the numbers can seem like, oh, you're not doing enough.
Mm-hmm.
We are really doing our best, honestly.
And I think that's a good silver lining is that we're really doing our best. And like I mentioned, this has gone up throughout the years. So it's growing, the movement is growing, the impact is growing, and no effort is too small or too little. So that's what I love about just sometimes statistics put things into perspective on what can be done, but also on how much has been done and how much we've been advancing. So I really think that's a good way to view it too. Um, so I'm going to ask you another question. That will be the last question for our kind of general questions round. And it's how many countries are abortions available on request? A, 49, B, 26, C, 77.
See, 77.
Yes, it is C,
That's,
77.
yeah, that was a quick one.
That was a really quick one. But I think maybe like when I read it I was like, "Oh wow, it's more than I thought it would be," which I think is really that's a great surprise.
Yeah, me too. I think I expected it to be less,
Mm.
because sometimes even just talking about it, people's reactions to words, and I I feel like a lot of places where the laws are so restrictive,
Mhm.
these places are platformed like a lot of times
Mhm.
just so we can create awareness. So yeah, you can sideline like the places that things are going great in these situations. So yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah. And just for some more context, I'll share this data, which is abortion is permitted in 47 countries for health reasons, and 43 countries to save the mother's lives, and it's strictly prohibited, unfortunately, in 22 countries, which that is a lot. 22 countries where it's prohibited is a lot. It's very heartbreaking because that means that more people will be prone to have unsafe abortions, which is what we want to avoid. But it's important we know this data so we know the work that still needs to be done. Like I mentioned, like 5 times already.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But another thing is that although it is authorized on request in 77 countries, this authorization request will depend on country. So, for example, in the United States, it will be a state by state case. So we also need to mention that it will vary depending on where you live. But in general, I think
Mm-hmm.
77 we're doing pretty good if we can continue to go up.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Now, I'm going to our second segment, which is a true or
Mm-hmm.
false segment. We're going to see how much you know about these next phrases. So the first one is
I'm
abortion.
ready.
Are you ready? All right. First, abortion is practiced more frequently in countries with liberal abortion legislation. True or false?
False. False. I know. I said that's like a question.
You are correct. This is false. I think one of the most
Mm-hmm.
common misconceptions is that people think that if you legalize abortions, more people will have abortions, and it's actually
Mm-hmm.
the opposite. So what legalized abortions means is that just it's easier for people to get the service, but also if you look at the numbers, countries with more liberal abortion laws have better sexual education, and
Yeah.
so, if you have better
Mm-hmm.
sexual education, then you're more likely to avoid having an unwanted pregnancy. So, these things
Yeah.
correlate, and it's important to see how this is mixing up. So, the second one, I think I already gave you the
Mm-hmm.
answer, but abortion rates abortion rates decline in countries where abortion is broadly legal. True or false?
True. I think we already answered it
Yeah.
because like you mentioned, most countries where the laws are liberal, they also have like very good systems in place for comprehensive sex
Mhm.
education. And yeah, a lot of research also shows that I know for sometimes, so in my context, for instance, the moment you start talking about sex or abortion to like a younger crowd, they feel like, oh my God, that's a taboo. Like, why are you doing this? Why, like, it's so wrong. Why are you doing this? But some research also actually says that for like a lot of teens growing up
Mm-hmm.
who got the chance to be educated sexually, most of them actually take their time to be sexually involved, and when they eventually do, they always make sure that they are either on protection or they are making the right choices
Mm-hmm.
because they have all the options available to them. Like they are not just entering the sexual phase
Yeah.
blind and based on social media representation only, or even movie representation only. So yeah, that's definitely a misinformation from
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people, that if you talk about sex with like a young person, is going to push them to start to want to be involved in sexual activities.
Mm-hmm. And I was actually recently informed that the teenagers who have, or yeah, teenagers who have comprehensive sexual education and are talked to
Mhm.
about like the responsibilities and the like the pleasures and everything of sex, they tend to have sex later on in life. So it's the opposite of what
Mhm.
people are
Mhm.
thinking. You're not actually telling them to go and
Yeah.
have sex. You're giving them the tools so they can make an informed decision. And since they have these tools, most of them prefer to do it later on in life, which I think is really great that we give them this autonomy to choose. So, our
Mhm.
third
Mhm.
and final true or false is this: abortion bans have no effect on women and pregnant people's health. True or false?
False.
False.
Because yeah, false. Because how it's sometimes when I sit and deep it so baffles me how the states and people are just deciding that we as women, like it's 2024,
Mm-hmm.
but they are still deciding that we as women do not have autonomy over our body.
Mm-hmm.
So they think they know what's best for us. And abortion bans just result in people getting involved with unsafe providers and people who are just not authorized to give them the services they need. Even when it comes to the usage of the pills, I
Mm-hmm.
don't. I think there are lots of times where people come into contact with the wrong type of pills to use for their abortion just because they live in a restrictive society. And even looking at post abortion, I mean, in places where people get the right pills after the abortion, if there's a sign of complication or anything, they are so scared about what trouble they might get into
Mm-hmm.
legally just because of the restrictions in their country, that they do not seek post abortion care, which some of these complications, even though they are rare, some can be so serious that it can result in mortality. So
Mm-hmm.
abortion bans cause a lot of harm, and even for people who are just looking for abortion and then they're not able to get it, I believe it takes a toll on their mental health. Because I read another study that was disputing a myth about feelings when it comes to abortion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it says something around so one of the most common feelings that abortion seekers have is relief. However, the people who are denied abortion are the ones who are usually subjected to negative feelings, because this is something they wanted, this is something they needed, this is something that was going to make their lives better, and they were denied. So it just comes with a lot of negative feelings
Mm-hmm.
instead.
I 100% agree. I think that there are a lot of risks with abortion bans in general that people just don't take into account. And I think for me, like the probably the most grave part is that you're just risking people's health and well being by not allowing them to have an abortion. So, for example, recently for Safe to Choose, we created this informative post on the case of Amber Thurman in the United States, who, because of complications from post abortion care, passed away, unfortunately, which could have been addressed if it wasn't banned in her state, which I believe. is she traveled from North Carolina to Georgia, I think, and they didn't allow, like, the medical team couldn't address her infection that was produced because of, like, this complication that can happen with any healthcare procedure. So we're seeing that these abortion bans really just put people's lives at risk, and I think it breaks my heart. I just don't really have no other thing to say with it other than I hope
Mm-hmm.
that people can look into these cases and understand why it's important that this service is available. It's not a matter
Mm-hmm.
of, I think, nor religion, or politics. It's just a matter of, saving people's lives. But yes, I agree
Yeah.
with everything you said, and those are the first two segments for this episode. So, Gail, I think you can lead the third section.
Yes. So our third segment is just myths and facts, which I believe Yanni is one of her favorite things to do, busting myths, because sometimes when I hear some of the things that are pushed by anti-choice people, I get infuriated and frustrated
Mm-hmm.
because why are you lying? Like, why are you lying? So the first myth is nobody wants to have an abortion.
That's false. That is a false statement. And
Mhm,
here's what I'm
mhm,
gonna say about this. The first thing I've seen, and I think we sin in the sense that, so people who are anti-abortion and also those who are pro-abortion say it sometimes that nobody wants to have an abortion. Either like they're like nobody wants to have an abortion in general. Abortions are bad or whatever, or I'm going to advocate for abortions, but nobody wants to have an abortion, but still, like, I'm going to advocate for it. That's also incorrect because you're, like, sharing this myth that it's not somebody's first choice, and sometimes it is. Sometimes when somebody has an unwanted pregnancy, the first thing that comes into their mind is, I'm going to have an abortion, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with deciding that you don't want to be a mother, and for some reason or another you became pregnant, and that you choose to have an abortion. You want to have an abortion because you think it's the best choice for yourself. So I think that's something we need to take into account. Like, people might want to have an abortion, and that's okay. I like to hear your perspective, Gil, as I know that you advocate a lot for pro-choice, in your personal life too.
mhm. That is definitely true, and I think even around the nobody wants to have an abortion is people also limiting themselves to only irresponsible people have abortions. So I think with advocacy too, we need to let people know that it's not just one particular group of people having abortions. Like the people who want to have abortion is a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's literally for anybody who can get pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
like for women and for people who can get pregnant, which can be an older woman who is even 60 years old, because I know they're like, I don't think I believe in miracles, but I know there are like miracle pregnancies and all
Mm-hmm.
those things. But like, yeah, where way older women who thought that, oh, I'm done. I'm not in my childbearing age anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Get pregnant. Like these people sometimes want abortions. There are also people who planned a pregnancy, find out that they are pregnant. They do not
Mm-hmm.
want this pregnancy anymore. So it's just Sorry, I think I'm having an issue with my
I know,
microphone.
I can hear you. I can hear
Hi,
you
can
well.
you hear?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So it's also just a matter of letting people know that it's a lot of people want to have an abortion.
Mm-hmm.
People need to have abortions. And these
Mm-hmm.
people are also like it can be a married woman, it can be a single mother, it can be a lesbian, it can be a bisexual. It's just it's a broad spectrum. And yeah, people need to stop
Mm-hmm.
saying that nobody wants to have an abortion. People want to have abortions. They need them. Some people even need it so that they can live a healthier life.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
No, I think we're totally on the same page about this. So, ready for
yeah.
the next myth? Let's go.
Next myth: all abortions are unsafe. This you go first.
Yes, this is
You go
false.
first.
So I think generally in just a way to scare people from having abortions, the first kind of way that we approach abortion sometimes when we're younger is that they share like these very traumatic scenes and things where people are maybe bleeding out or using unsafe tools, and that's not the truth. I think a lot of the people who are advocating for abortions nowadays know that we need to move past this image of scaring people and saying like abortions are scary, abortions are dangerous, and sharing the truth, which is abortions have a very high effective rate, whether it be an in clinic abortion or an abortion with pills. Of course, like any healthcare procedures, they may be complications, but that's precisely why it's important to have the correct resources, informations, and if possible, to go to a healthcare provider or to have an abortion companion or just really be like a family member or a friend or someone who can be with you throughout that journey. Now, I think just in general, abortions can be really safe, which is why we advocate for safe abortions, which means that we need to have the right resources and information. And also, I share this every time we talk about abortions, but the World Health Organization shares self managed abortion protocols. So, the World Health Organization is providing this information and these tools for people who might need to have an abortion at home, which means that it's safe enough to have an abortion at home, which I think is very important to take into account. Now, Gail, please give us the passionate answer that I know you can give us.
I I think you summarized it beautifully, honestly, because it's just fear mongering. It's just something people say just I don't know to make themselves feel better about the fact that they do not support abortions because you can have your opinion. So that's one thing I always say. You can have your
Mm-hmm.
opinions, but I do not want to hear you spreading these type of lies and perpetuating this idea that abortions are unsafe,
Mm-hmm.
because yes, granted, they can be unsafe if the person lives in a restrictive country or state, if they don't have like the right medication,
Mm-hmm.
that's if they're choosing medical abortion, if they do not have the right medical provider, if they are going the surgical way, then it can be unsafe. But for you to just sit down and generalize that all abortions are unsafe, that's that's a bit ignorance actually,
Mm-hmm.
because like you said, there's information out there now all over, a lot, like not even a lot, almost I think all the advocacy groups are now very
Mm-hmm.
like um focused on making people know that like it's literally just like any other procedure, like he said. And some people even say that it's even safer than getting your tooth removed,
Mm-hmm.
and safer than taking Viagra. And a lot of men are out here. I'm basically living on Viagra, but it's shame on us because we want to take our washing pills. Like, please, they can be safe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think
Yeah.
just spreading this idea that all abortions are unsafe will make people continue
Mhm.
with an unwanted pregnancy, which will develop more problems in the future. So that's why it needs to be avoided.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah. So the next one, third myth, you can't self-manage an abortion.
We answered this already, but but you can safely
Yeah.
self manage your abortion. Uh, Self plug here, but How to Use Abortion Pill has a great series on self managed abortion, which provides step by step videos and explanation on how to have a safe abortion at home with pills, either with mifepristone and misoprostol or only misoprostol. And on our end at Safe to Choose, we have abortion counselors who can guide you during your abortion journey, which will be there step by step with you, chat with you, just see how you're doing during your abortion. But back to the to the actual myth. I think this idea that you have to have an abortion in a medical clinical setting all the time, and that's something we're actively trying to combat. I think would say be the right word, because we want people to know that it's not necessary to be in a clinic, and the reason why we advocate for people to be able to have a self-managed abortion is because we need to be as inclusive as possible. So there might be people who, for example, our mothers have children. They have to unfortunately do a lot of things, and like they need to have be close to their family, so they have to be able to self-manage that abortion. We have people who are living in regions where it's very hard to go to an abortion clinic. They have to travel so much, and maybe tying into what's happening in the world, but we've seen a lot of devastating floods, a lot of devastating environmental destruction. So if you're trapped and you need to have an abortion, how are you going to travel to the clinic if you're having all these issues that are out of your hands, for example? And then there are people who maybe are a bit more shy. They want to be alone, and that's okay, and that's a good reason too. I recently had an interview with some girls from, I think it was Argentina, and they were saying that for them, like their dream is that people could have like their emergency basket in their houses, which is with like ibuprofen, um, birth control that's easily accessible, and emergency abortion pills in case somebody that they know or themselves need to have an abortion, which is I think very utopic, but like it would be great if it could be that easily accessible. And of course, like we mentioned, the more liberal a place is about their abortion laws, the better sex education there's going to be. So the less chances there are somebody having an abortion. Um, but still, I think it's good to know that we can safely self manage an abortion and that we have the tools to have the abortion experience we want, because we can have an abortion with our friends, with our family, with a loved one, with an abortion counselor, and you can be in the comfort of your own home watching your favorite television series, knowing that you made the best decision for yourself.
You covered all the bases. I don't even have anything else to add. So our next myth is people should not discuss abortions.
Your eye roll tells me everything. Yes, but false.
Yes.
There is a reason why Gil and I do a monthly live stream,
Mm,
and it's in
mm,
hopes
mm.
that people feel more open to speaking about abortions. We've said this again a lot of the times that people are scared of the word abortion. For some reason, abortion is like something you feel like you have to whisper, like, "Oh, I know someone who had an abortion," or "I had an abortion," which is not necessary. Yeah, exactly. And you can speak it, you can shout it. Like we had our episode with "Shout Your Abortion." You can
Yeah.
openly say it, of course, if you're comfortable. Nobody's going to force you to share something that you don't want. But I think sharing your
Mm-hmm.
abortion story, sharing the fact that people have an abortion, sharing the fact that abortions are common and they're normal is very important because, quite frankly, I think I when people find out that I work in a lot of this kind of advocacy roles about sexual reproductive health, they feel more comfortable sharing things with me. And then I found out that people that I've known for years have had an abortion, which I never knew, and it's like, "Oh, thank you so much for feeling like you can trust me with this information and sharing with me. I hope that that you always feel welcome in sharing any of these experiences you have with me. I can help as much as possible, as much as you allow me to. But I think that's great because we're building community, we're building sisterhood, we're building this connected tissue, this connectiveness of people
Mm-hmm.
around the world who are
Mm-hmm.
advocating for safe abortions. But in your experience, Gail, how why is it important to just talk about abortions?
I, I think all the reasons you said, honestly, because now it's just seen as this greater evil. And I think one way, like just generally in the world, one way of to normalize something is just being vocal about it, just talking
Mm-hmm.
about it. Lesson like the more we speak about it, the more we are having these conversations, the more people who do not even have access to resources are
Mm-hmm.
also getting to hear about all these amazing resources that are out there. So it's important because we can help to demystify the topic of abortion, because abortion is just shrouded in this mystery. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's just all this negativity flying around. I think it also makes it very easy for people to believe all the misinformation
Mm-hmm.
and myths. So the more we are talking about it, the more we are also putting reliable and accurate information out there for people to just be aware of,
Mm-hmm.
just in case they need to have an abortion, or someone they love or know wants to have an abortion and they want to support. So this is just in our efforts to normalize the
Mm-hmm.
topic and the process of abortion.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
And we've said this
Yeah.
before. But for example, neither of us have had an abortion, and that does not
Mm-hmm.
mean that we cannot advocate for abortions or that I will not continue to advocate, or maybe I
I
may
I have a
person
story.
I will go into the story. I was gonna say, or maybe I may. not personally choose to have an abortion, but I'm going to keep on fighting for
Mm-hmm.
everyone else's rights because that is our right. So please share your story,
Mm-hmm.
Gil.
So, today is a very short story. So, World Contraception Day was just like, I
Mhm.
think somewhere last week. Sorry, I've forgotten the date. But yeah, so I got reached out by a local radio station,
Mhm.
and they wanted me to come on. The person mentioned that, oh, they've seen my advocacy on
Mhm.
TikTok, and she really applauds me for what I'm doing for like women and all that. I mean, I was all gassed up,
Mhm.
because yeah, it's nice to get these compliments every now and then. I mean, even though that's not like the sole reason for advocating.
Mhm.
So she mentioned they want somebody to come on and share um their knowledge about abortion, also in relation to contraception.
Mhm.
So I asked for more details, and I realized, oh, they were looking for somebody who has actually had an
Mhm.
abortion. So I got back to them and made them aware, oh, I don't have an abortion story to
Mhm.
share. I have stories from other people who I can talk about anonymously, of course,
Mhm.
but I do not have a personal story. And she sounded taken aback,
Mhm.
and she said, "Oh, she thought I share because I've had one before." And
Mhm.
I think there's just also this idea that if you are advocating, then you've been there. You don't have to have had an abortion to be able to advocate for abortion laws,
Mhm.
abortion rights, and just the topic in general. It doesn't have to be that way. And I don't know, it really doesn't bother me, but I wish people will also change their mindsets.
Mhm. Mhm. I got a question. Did you go to the interview or?
No, I did not,
Uh-huh.
because they wanted someone who has had an abortion. So, and I
Interesting.
also made them aware. I mean, in Ghana, even though the laws are very liberal on abortions, I think Ghanaians still move as if we have restrictive laws
Mhm.
just because of like the cultural and religious settings. So even though there are hospitals and there's clinics and all that, a lot of people still don't want to be
Mhm.
out there that I've had an abortion, or I did this or I did that. So I made them aware that it might actually be difficult to get somebody
Mhm.
who wants to be on a radio station. But they told me it's going to be anonymous. I just wish them the best,
Mhm.
and yeah, that was it. But I didn't go.
That's interesting. Oh, that's such a
Mm-hmm.
complicated situation. But yeah, it ties into what I was
Yeah.
saying that I think there's this idea that you can only be pro-choice if you already had an abortion,
Mm-hmm.
which is not true. It's, for
Mm-hmm.
example, some women may never want to have children. They may never want to become mothers, but they're still going to advocate against obstetric violence. I'm sure Gail will advocate for women's rights to have a safe pregnancy and to not go through any like
Yeah.
violence. So
Yeah. True. So yeah, just coming to the end of this episode. And even though we did this whole question and answers, it's still been very informational, and I think we should be having a lot of sessions like this, because
mhm.
questions and answers. We could also target some FAQs. But
Mhm.
just to come back to our topic for today, asking you, V, why do you think it's important? Like what we do, we are advocates for safe abortions.
Mhm.
Why do you think what we do is important? Why should like even the normal people walking around get into safe abortion advocacy?
Hmm. So I'm gonna share my experience now. Over
Please
the
do.
weekend, I was accompanied by some co-workers, which you know who, Gil, and we went to the Safe Abortion Day march here in Mexico City, and it was really great. We were sharing information, but we were comparing the march for Safe Abortion Day to the one for Women's Day. It wasn't even a sixth of all the people that go to the Women's Day march. And we were saying that, oh, this has to do because all women are concerned about women's issues, but not all women are concerned about abortion rights. So that's something that we were like, oh, this happened. And then also there was a lot of judgment happening and a lot of police being enforced during the thing. So I will share that with you on the side. But I think it was just a reminder that openly speaking about abortions is still not normalized. Advocating for abortions is still not normalized. So the more people that advocate and the more people that speak out, the more normal it will become. I think people forget that there are things in general for women's rights. For example, in the past, it was inconceivable for women to vote. It was inconceivable for women to be part of education, for women to have their own bank accounts, for women to work by themselves, for women to own property. I think this is we're just in one of these moments where in the future we'll look back and be like, oh, like why was this banned? Why was this not a thing? You know.
Yeah.
I hope that
Yeah.
everyone could be on the right side of the movement, but there's always time to change if you're not on the right side. But just in
Mhm.
general, I think it's important because I believe that everyone deserves to have a safe abortion experience. I believe that people should be able to choose if they want to continue a pregnancy or not. I believe people should be able to be open about their abortion experience if they want to share it. I believe that nobody should feel shame or stigma for either having an abortion or advocating for safe abortions. I feel that just in general, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, but I also want to be thankful and applaud for all the work that has been done and has led us to where we are today. And hopefully, for example, in Mexico, abortion is legalizing like a domino effect, and they like once a month a new state is legalizing abortions. So I hope that we get to a point where it's legal in the whole country, and I hope that every country gets to a point where it's legal, and uh, it's normal and you can get a quality service and that people have comprehensive sexual and reproductive health rights and just in general can live a good life. To me, it's just a matter of living a good life.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing your experience today. 'Cause I I love hearing about experiences, and that's true. Again, you've basically covered everything, and it's just important because the more we advocate, the more we get the information out there to people who may need it now, in the future, or just whenever. And like you said, I know years to come, or even decades, even if it's centuries to come, we will look back on these times and then be so proud, even if our generation is not here anymore. The generations that are yet to come will just look back and be so proud that we were part of this fight for them to get to make decisions that are so important to women and to people who are able to get pregnant. So my next question is, how can we combat abortion misinformation?
I think for me, I will always say that education is the most powerful tool. I think we live in an age where it's really easy to find information. Unfortunately, that means there's a lot of misinformation, but that's why it's important to look at resources. For example, How to Use Abortion Pill and Safe to Choose are two online resources that are completely free, that have information. We cite our sources. We also consult a lot of doctors to make sure everything's in line with what has to be. We're constantly updating ourselves for the most accurate information. But you can also look at other platforms like like CDC, like Planned Parenthood, Plan C Pills, Women on Web. So many great resources that you can find information on. I think part of helping is also sharing. So if you saw a podcast, a TV show, a movie, a documentary, a reel, a TikTok where people are just sharing information on abortions, share it with your family, with your friends, because that's also helpful. Some people never know anything because they just don't come across that information. Maybe their algorithm doesn't share that with them, but if you share it with them, they might change their perspective and they might understand why it's important to advocate for abortions. And I think it just in general, there's no dumb questions. You can always ask anything, even the thing that might seem like the most obvious thing. You can ask it. There's always a platform that will help you with that information and guide you. And just it's never too late too. It's never too late. You can always learn about abortions. It doesn't matter if you're 60 years old. You can still learn about abortions. You can learn information and maybe share it with a loved one later on. I think it's just always a good moment to learn and to research and to share that.
think just to add, so with all the resources that we mentioned, it's important that you always fact check, because sometimes you might come across a content and then I think a lot of social media users are just generally lazy. So we always have so much misinformation out there. People just see one thing and then they just run with it. So it's very important that you fact check, go to different resources, just to see what maybe two or three other people are saying. Then you know that, oh, okay, if I'm sharing this information,
Mhm.
if I'm reposting this, if I'm liking this, if I'm copying this to share with a friend, I
Mhm.
know that I'm sharing the right thing and it's not something that's going to put somebody in a compromising situation. So we've come to the end of our live stream today. As always, it's been amazing having this chat. If you are on here, thank you for always tuning in or for just tuning in today. And you can also head over to our YouTube to watch this
Mhm.
session. But before we go, since it was Safe Abortion Month, we were both running some campaigns. Via, did you want to share what Safe to Choose did this month?
Yes, of
Mm-hmm.
course. We ran a lot of campaigns, including memes. The memes did the best out of the whole campaign. But we were running a campaign really based on audiovisual content. So a lot of videos just talking about letters to our safe to choose abortion counselors. So people can know that there are people around the world asking for this. We have really great videos about a day in the life of an abortion counselor or why people became abortion counselors because we really wanted to humanize the fact that there are people behind the abortion advocacy. So maybe you just look at us and you think like, oh, it's just an organization, a corporation, just a brand. But we're actually, humans. We're humans working and we're doing it because we're passionate about your right to choose, your right to a safe abortion, your right to a healthy life. So please look at the campaign. You can find it on our social media. We're at Safe to Choose on Instagram, X, Facebook, TikTok, Vimeo, and YouTube. And again, like we always mention, this might be the end of the Safe Abortion Month, but the fight is not over. We will advocate for safe abortions year round. Gail, I'd like to know. Could you let me know what was the campaign for how to use all the amazing work that everyone did?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So for us, our focus was on Ali. So also using audiovisual. It was just a diary session with Ali. So Ali was basically just sharing some instances where she helped people self manage their abortions at home. But we had a wide audience because we had somebody from Latin America, we had someone from Togo, we had someone from sorry, I'm I'm mixing up the countries right now in my
But
head.
it was
But
worldwide.
we went global.
Uh huh.
Yeah, we went global, and our personas also included a cisgender male. We had a breastfeeding mother reaching out to Ali for assistance, wanting to know if it is safe for a breastfeeding mother to have an abortion with pills. So, yes, you can get into these stories on our social media pages at How to Use Abortion Pill on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, basically everywhere. How to use abortion pill or HTU abortion pill. And you can also just find general information that can help you to safely self manage your abortion or just to be a support ally for somebody you love or know. So until next time,
Thank you, everyone. Happy Safe Abortion Month.
yeah.